All right, guys, here we are. Next part of Trig coming up. We got T minus 11 days till we are back all together. When we get back, we'll probably have a couple of tests with all the stuff that we've gone over to get those grades in, and then just continue on. So here we are today, going to be talking about, let's make sure we pull up those notes. But right now we're taking a look at still sine, cosine, and tangent. So let's make sure we go back up and take a look again at good old SOHCAHTOA. Make sure we understand, remembering sine, cosine, and tangent, using opposite and adjacent. And remember with that, do your best to try to identify the hypotenuse first. Remember, we can always identify the hypotenuse. Let's see. We'll go with that. We can always identify the hypotenuse by looking across from that right angle. So once you've identified that, then remember you use the angles themselves to figure out which one. So if we'd be looking at this angle here, this would be the opposite side, the little b, and this A, this side here would be the adjacent side. Remember C, that C side is always going to be the hypotenuse because it's across from that right angle. So now that we've got that, now we talked about setting up these ratios on Friday. Now we're going to take a look at jumping into using them to solve for sides. So we can notice here, x is right here. That's the side we're trying to solve. So since it's a side that x is going to be part of that fraction that we set up as we look at sine, cosine, and tangent. Now the issue is we got to figure out which one of these do we use. So if we notice, they use tangent because we have this angle right here. Well, x is the side opposite it, because remember, the adjacent or the hypotenuse side is the side that's opposite the right angle. They didn't give us that in this. So we're not going to use sine or cosine. We'd have to use tangent because that's the only one that doesn't use the hypotenuse. So now we have our opposite side, which is x, which is why it goes on top. And our adjacent side is the 17. That's why that one's going to go on the bottom. Now when we get to here, notice we have a fraction. X is the top of the fraction, so all we got to do is get rid of the bottom. So we'll multiply both sides by 17. That's how our next step becomes 17 times the tangent of 48. And we'll just do that in our calculator to get what our x value is going to be. Now let me pull up a way to get a calculator if you don't have one at home. Let's make sure we've all got that, because you can get a good scientific calculator just online for free. So we'll go here, we'll go TI-84 calculator online. That's what we want to look for. When we get to that, we'll notice here we'll have a couple of ads, but we want to look for the one that says numworks.com, the online graphic calculator from NumWorks. So that'll bring you here. Now, when we get to here, just click full screen, and let me make sure we're still seeing all of this. Let's scroll down a little bit then. So we'll click here to get this full screen. Now, this screen on the right, that's basically what the screen is. And I'm just going to move this one down a little bit, make this one a little bit smaller so we can see everything that we've got here. But basically what we've got is this screen on the right, sorry for the movement on that, is going to be our home screen for our calculator. So we'll just hit OK on the calculator over here to get what we need. Now, we were talking before about needing to see what 17 times the tangent, and tangent being the SIN, COS, TAN buttons right here. If you've got your graphing calculator, they're in basically the same spots. Let me blow myself up for a second here. If we take a look at our scientific calculator here, sine, cosine, and tangent right there. Those are the buttons that we're looking to hit. I'm going to do everything on the online calculator today, so that way you can see all of that. But we hit 17 times. Now it's the tangent of 48, because remember, we have to take the tangent of our angles. Oh, and I just hit the wrong button to go back. But 17 times the tangent of 48, and then we just hit what our answer is. And we see here 18.8. And if we go to back to the notes, I won't go too many times back and forth between these. But if we go back to the notes, now we see 18.9. That's what 18.8 rounds up to. And they did say round to the nearest tenth. So that's why we would round there. Now I'm just going to go through these. I'm not going to, again, go through the calculator button pushes, because we can do that. We'll just see how these setups go. Again, now in number 3, if we notice right here, now we're being given that hypotenuse. Now we're given that side opposite the right angle. So we look at our 67-degree angle. We have to use the angle to figure out what we're going to do to solve for x. Since this is the angle we're given, we then use x since it's opposite. If it's going to be the opposite and the hypotenuse would mean we would have to use sine for that one. So that's how we're remembering to use these to figure out what our setup is. Now we set that up, sine of 67, because it's always the sine, cosine, or tangent of the angle that we have. We're never going to use the sine, cosine, or tangent of a side or of a triangle if you're getting the attendance form done today. But if we notice, 29's on the bottom, so we follow the same steps. Now, when we get to ones, though, like number 4 and 5, now notice the setups have x being on the bottom of the fraction. Now, what I want you to notice is the difference between what we have here. For that one, we have 12 over x, and notice what it becomes is 12 over the sine of 129. So when we do these, all we're going to do is take the x and the sine of, or whatever we have on this side, and switch them. So just switch where the x and the sine or the cosine or the tangent of that number is. Just switch them. Because notice what they do times x on both sides to get rid of it, and then they divide by the sine of 29. All you need to do is just switch them. So just switch those real quick there and just go, and I will show you what we've got for this in terms of what we have on our calculator and what that should look like. So for this one, now notice we did 17 times that sine. Well, now we're looking at 12 divided by, because remember it's a fraction, so we just take 12 and then we hit divided by the sine of 29. And we hit our enter, we get 24.75, which rounds up to 24.8. And that's how we get to, make sure we get to the right one. Make sure how we get to that one right there. Now, like I said, with these, all of these, I'm not going to go through every single one. Those are the two tricks we need to know. We need to know that if x is the top, we just multiply both sides by what's on the bottom, and we'll end up doing that times whatever our sine, cosine, or tangent is. If x is on the bottom, we'll just use our quick switch, and we'll just do our number divided by the sine, cosine, or tangent of what we've got. Now, with that, that is going to take us to the assignment that you've got in Khan Academy today. You have one assignment, solving for a side in a right triangle. Let me jump on over to that one so we can go through that one together and see what some of those are going to look like. And let's see. Let's just blow this one up for you a little bit so we can see what we'll have here. And let me make sure calculator looks good there as well. We can work with that. We can make it happen. So, going over to solving for this, notice we have 70 is the angle that we've got. 5 is the hypotenuse, and the question mark is on this side over here. So when we set this up, we're going to set up, and let's blow up CoChart here as we see what our setups are going to be. Oop. We want that one rolling. So if we see right here, we've got the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. So the CAH would mean this would be the cosine of 70 is equal to x. And that would be what our setup would be right there. So now what we have to do is multiply both sides by 5. So 5 times the cosine of 70 is equal to what our answer is. Now, with that, we're just going to do that in our calculator. And we'll make sure we'll bring CoChart now down a little bit. And remember, we're going to the nearest hundredth here for this. So that is going to go 2 places. So we have 5 times the cosine of 70. Now make sure if you're doing this, if you do cosine of 70 first, and let me actually go with that. Make sure if we go with cosine of 70, make sure we don't do 70 times 5 inside of the parentheses. Okay, because notice that's going to give us the cosine of, eventually it's going to give us a cosine of 10. And we'll explain that at a later date, how that does work. Believe me, it is the same thing. But what we want is 5 times the cosine of 70 to give us what we have there. Now notice that is going to give us that it is 1.710. So we're going to go to that and put 1.71 in for what we have there. And don't worry, it's telling me that answer is correct. So now we get to right here. If we are right here, we've got 20 as that marker. So now what we have to set up is something with the hypotenuse, because that's the one that we don't know, and our adjacent angle. So again, using the same thing that we've got. So now we have x, or not x over 7. We're going to make sure we do this correct. It is 7 over x. So make sure I write that in correctly. We have the cosine of 20 is equal to 7 over x. Now, remember, like I said with these, we're just going to quick switch. And we're going to switch where 7 and cosine, or not 7, I keep saying the wrong things. We're going to switch where x and that cosine of 20 are. And that's going to give us what we have there as 7 divided by the cosine of 20. And bring ourselves down a little bit. But now that it is 7 divided by the cosine of 20, we get our answer as 7.449. We're going to those 100th decimal places, so 7.45. Now let's just get through the last 2 that we've got now. This is 40. Notice the hypotenuse is not given to us. Now, I'm not going to write out these setups for you. We've seen the 2 different setups. I'm just going to kind of talk these out. Since we've got the opposite and the adjacent, this is tangent. So the tangent of 40 is equal to x over 6 because x is our opposite, 6 is our adjacent. Now, if it's x over 6, that means we're going to do both sides multiplied by 6. So 6 times the tangent of 40 gives us 5.03 for that one. And then the last one that we've got is going to give us an opposite and a hypotenuse. So this one, x is the hypotenuse. It is SOH for so. So this is going to be the sine of 35 equals 4 over x. Now that means x is on the bottom, so we'll quick switch those. So this will give us 4 divided by the sine of 35. And that's going to give us here 6.973. The 3 tells us we're not rounding anything up, so 6.97 would be what we get for today. And that'll get us Great job. We've completed the assignment. 330 energy points. Great job, everybody. That is it for finding the side using sine, cosine, and tangent in trigonometry today. We will get more practice with this in IXL tomorrow. I will get the IXL starred today. I will assign it tomorrow. I'll announce it in the assignment stream for Google Classroom. But if you do want to jump in that, the same thing that we're doing, finding the sides of a right triangle in trigonometry, that'll be what we'll be doing in IXL tomorrow as well. If you have any questions, let me know. Send me an email, and I will be seeing you guys soon. 11 more days.